Greetings, I'm Mark, and if you've been following me, you can check out my GitHub account, and I'll have links down below where you can download the previous sketch that we've created, and we're going to continue on. We're going to enhance this a little bit more. What we've done here in this one is made it so it won't play the same song twice in a row. Now what we want to do is create it so once you start it, it will play all the songs in your list only one time, play them randomly. And when it gets done, it will restart and you can do it again or not. And so let's get started. What are we going to need to do that? Well, I can tell you some of the things we won't need. First off, we won't need this anymore. We will not need the previous index. And so up here in loading, we won't need this line, which we got to get the rest of that out of there because we don't need to test anymore, and we won't be doing this. Okay, that's our beginning. So let me save this, Control Save. What are we going to need to do here? One of the first things we actually want to do is we want to create an array list that puts the songs that have been played. It stores the songs that have been played so we can look in that list and see if the song is played. If it has played, we don't play it. How are we going to do that? Well, first I want to create an array list. Now I could easily use the length of the song names list to create another array, but I found that this is a little bit simpler for me. And so we're going to create an array list, and it's going to be a string. And our array list, did I spell it right? No, sting, huh? String. And our array list, we're going to call it songs played. And then we're going to just define it. So we've declared it, now we're going to define it. We don't have to quite do this here, but it makes it quick and simple. And so we've defined it. Let me see. Oops. Jeez. Array list, L-I-S-T. Okay. Now it's been defined. It's been declared and defined. What next? Well, what I kind of want to do is I want to have a trigger. I want to have a trigger that we can test. That once we've started, clicked on the screen to start playing, that it knows that it's done that. And the only way I can think of doing it is creating a Boolean, and we're going to call it started. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to define started as F-A-L-S-E, because when you first run the app, it has not been clicked. And then we want to move it here, and once it's been clicked, and each time we want to say it's started, and we want it equal to true. Pretty simple. Now pretty much everything remains the same except right in here. Since we've created the started variable, we no longer need this here, and we're going to use our started variable. And our started variable, these two conditions need to exist. We've had to have clicked it, and the song should not be playing in order to load this, which, as I've explained in the previous video, that this allows the song to complete playing before it starts to play another song. And that's all this line does. Okay, now because over here down in our mouse release, it also loads the song and plays it. So each time we click it, if the song hasn't completed, it's going to still load. But if we don't click it, it's going to wait till it finished before it loads a new song. Okay, the next thing we want to do here is we want to test whether or not that song has been played. Now, if we, over in here, we've started our song, we've tested it to see that it's not null and that it is playing. If it is playing, we pause it. Then we want to, which we've already defined here, load the random number. Now we've also grabbed the file, test to see if it exists, and then continue to load it, store it in now playing, and then start the song playing. So what we are going to do here is the first thing we want to do, we're going to change this a little bit of change up. We want to say if the file does not exist, if it doesn't exist, not, if this ends up true, it does not exist, and we're going to say, and if it's not, and we're going to create a function here, not been played. We're creating a function here. Now, this function doesn't exist. We need to create it ourselves, and we're going to do that right now. Again, I'm going to create another tab, new tab, and I'm going to call it, you guessed it, played. Now in here, I'm going to create our test to see if the song is played. Now, right in here, what does this imply here? These two tests, not file, if the file doesn't exist, that's a Boolean result. And again, over here, this is a Boolean result. So how do we deal with that in a function? Well, we've got to create a return called Boolean, and we're going to create a function called played. And you can see we get a little bit of an error, but the reason why the error exists is because, you can read it down here, the method must be of a Boolean type. And so we want to do a return. It's looking for a return value, which we hadn't created yet. Return, and when we return, we want to return the results. And so return result, the result doesn't exist. And so what I want to do here is I want to create another Boolean, and we're going to call it result. And since we're creating these within this function, they can only be accessed and used within this function and result. And we want to make it equal to false. And so what happens here is when it comes in to this function, it's saying the result is false, which we want to default it as, and it was going to return the result as false. But now, what do we want to do? We want to check all this. First thing we need to do is check our songs played list, and to see if the song name that was going to play next has already been played. And this is how we're going to do that. We're going to create a for loop, and we're going to say for int I equals 0. I like to put a space here. Int I equals 0, and as long as I is less than songs played dot size. S-I-Z-E. Why size instead of length? Because when you're working with array lists, arrays start being completely different, and I find array lists are a little bit easier to work with. And so size, as long as it's within that, oops, wait, not that, it's less than the length, keep doing what's in this for loop. And we want to increment I, and then create our for loop. What's going to happen in here? Well, what we're going to do each time is we're going to test it. If song names, and we know it's already index, song names is equal to songs played. Now, how do we get this? Now, we can't actually do the same thing index. You get an error, as you can see. That's because it's an array list. It's not typical. And so what we got to do is actually tell it to get what is at I location, or the I element, and compare it to the array list element at index. And what it's going to do here is it is going to test to see if they're equal. If they are equal, then it's going to tell result equals true. And that's kind of the big deal right there. That's the end of it. But what happens if you have like 30 songs in your songs played list, and it's checking a song that's, say, maybe at the third element? We don't want to check the rest of the 27 of them. And so once it comes up true, we want to break out of the for loop. And it breaks out of the for loop when it becomes true, and it sends back the result. Let me control save that. I'm pretty sure that that is all you need there. Now here we have to do a little bit more. And what's going on in here is, again, it's got these two Booleans it's checking out. If the file doesn't exist, and the file has not been played, we want to end up storing. We want to store that song that doesn't exist, that's in the list, in our songs played list. Anyway, even though it can't play it, we don't want it to keep looking and finding it in the random, when it does the random index. We don't want it to keep trying to load that song. And so we want to store it into our songs played list. And the way we do that is we want to say songs played dot add. Now, because it's an array list, you can't just say that it's equal to the index name. And so we have to say add song names. Now we put in the index, add song names. And so it's taking that name that it didn't exist and hasn't already been tested and adds it to our list. And so then we continue. What do we want to do? Well, if it does, what if something here ends up being false? We want it to continue on. And we're going to add else. And else what it's going to do is we're going to do a quick test again. If the song has not been played, again, into that Boolean function that we created, if it's not been played, then we want to pretty much play it. We want to load it and play it. But before we do that, we want to do what we did up here. We're just going to copy this one. And we want to add it. And so we add it to our list. We add it to our list. We load it. We put the name of it into our now playing, and we play it. Now, that should actually do it, but there's something else we need to account for. What do we do when it gets to the end of the list? We need to test for that, and we need to account for it. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to add a little test to see if it's gotten to the end. And to do that, we got to, again, test if statement. And how I'm checking it is I'm saying if song names dot length is equal to songs played dot size size, that means that it's gone through the list. But what we also want to do is make sure that the song that was playing is complete. And we want to say if song is not playing, not is playing, then we want to do all this next stuff, which is, first thing we want to do is we want to say started, oops, gotta spell it right, started equals false. Started equals false. And then we want to clear our song array list, our songs played array list. And it's one of the things that I really like about using array list. It makes it pretty easy. Songs played dot clear, clear, which is a function, and it clears the array list, makes it null. And then here's something that I learned, gosh, I can't remember who I learned it from. It was on the forum, the processing forum, and I was like, wow, that's kind of a neat trick. You can't always use it, but in our case it does work. And it's frame count equals -1. And so that will restart the sketch. Now we can save it. And if we've gotten it right, it should function now. Let's just hit play and see what we come up with. And click. There's the first song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. As you can see, it's working and functioning quite well. 10, let's start all over again. Okay, we're going to close this down. Now, we want to load our list from our music folder. Now, my music folder is in C slash users slash username goo. My username is goo slash music slash. Now we got a little error here, and that's because processing looks at these backslashes as part of an escape code and it will not function. It says invalid Unicode. To fix this, there's been many ways people have tried. This is the easiest way. You reverse it and it just knows. Okay, now we've done that. We also got to change that, and I'm going to just copy this part of it right here. Control copy. We also have to change it in our load song. Right here where we're using data path, we want to quote, Control B, quote plus dat. What do we got here? Okay, we got to remove this. Okay. So now if it's there, which our list isn't there yet, Control save. We're going to go into Sketch, and we're going to go into Show Sketch folder. Over here into Data, I'm going to take this list, and I'm just going to drag it over to my music folder. Oh, already got one name there. We're going to just replace it. Okay, now it's been moved out of that folder, no longer useful. Let's play it again. Starts over. Okay, now one other thing I wanted to do. I'm going to go into our music folder. I'm going to load our let me see where there's that, our list, and I'm going to, oh, our list is already doing it. What it's got here, this song, we changed the name here, and it is not the same song as here, and so it is handling our little error that can pop up when you're not using, when it can't find a file. It's dealing with it, which is a good thing. And so, okay, just in case we come up with an error, I'm going to add one more item. I want to test whether or not on this line, how we test if it started, we wanted to test if it's playing. I want to add this item that we used in the previous video. I'm going to see if the song is not equal to null and all the rest of this stuff before it tries. This way we can avoid an error if the song doesn't exist. If it chose randomly the very first, like our first one in this list is misspelled. because we changed the name. And that way, when we play it, if it does happen to come up, the very first song, it won't error out, and it'll just skip it. Now what we've done here is we've created a random music player that will randomly play songs from a list and only play those songs one time. Now, if you like this one, in the next video, I'm going to add a couple of visual effects to it. One of them will be a sound progression bar. And the other one, I'm going to, well, I'm going to leave it as a surprise. So I will put this video, a link to this code, rather, a link to this code on my GitHub repository, so you can download the code. But I'm pretty sure you found it quite easy to follow. But if you didn't, you can download it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please always try to be happy and always try to be good to one another. Thank you.